Hello, I'm Virginia Gager. I'm here to discuss the importance of effective communication for my Human Services Counseling course, 508 at Liberty University. For this course, I will be referencing some course materials: John Stewart's Bridges Not Walls, France and Weigel's Helping Skills for Human Service Workers, Carbonell's How to Solve a Puzzle, Peterson's Why Don't We Listen Better, a self-assessment that was completed using the Uniquely You website, as well as 2 scholarly peer-reviewed journals. For this presentation, I will be focusing on a few topics. I will begin with the definition of communication, as well as interpersonal communication, and the importance of interpersonal communication. I will then discuss my overarching goal while using effective interaction methods, an explanation of behavioral blends and which category I fall into, and then focus on common communication barriers that occur when 2 or more people attempt to communicate with each other. Some resources and strategies I use to converse with people, also an action plan to ensure I break the common communication barriers. When we converse with others, do we really understand the message the person is trying to convey? Let's start with the definition of communication. According to Stewart, communication is a continuous collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal meaning-making skills. And what is interpersonal communication, some may ask? According to Stewart, interpersonal communication is a communication that occurs when people talk and listen in ways to maximize the presence of the personal. A personal career goal of mine is to be open-minded, and if I could sum up my overarching goal into one phrase, it would be to rise above normalcy. I choose to and plan to rise above the societal norms, break free from communication traps, understand the speaker from a broader spectrum, as well as listen to understand, not just to respond. With this, I learned from Peterson's text, Why Don't We Listen Better?, to be mindful to those who choose to communicate, stay open-minded to the information that is expressed, and to build meaningful relationships. When conversing with people, it is essential to understand the meaning behind the message. As expressors and interpreters, we need to understand that the 6 features of communication in which Stewart points out, as meaning, which breaks down to realize that no one can be blamed for a communication outcome; culture, choice, and identity, which stems from the meaning that all communication equates to a decision which expresses one's views and values and how we may see ourselves. Conversation dialogue strengthens communication, and nexting is able to set yourself apart from a communication trap, understand how you can assist in what occurs next. As we go into behavioral blends and backgrounds, I would like to share a tad bit about myself. I served in the United States Army for 6 years as a military police officer. I held many positions during my time in service. Some of the jobs I've held was an investigator for narcotics, as well as Special Victims Unit. I have served as a mentor and led and trained soldiers. I was raised by a strong woman who raised a strong-willed woman to be a self-sufficient and independent woman. With my job and experiences and how I was raised, I have a fix-it mentality and has lived as a task-oriented person to ensure the mission is always met and tasks are thoroughly completed to ensure maximum efficiency. According to Uniquely You, each of us has a predictable pattern of behavior because we have specific personalities. There are 4 personality types. These types are known as temperaments. They break down as a blend to determine a person's unique makeup. The personality types are D, I, S, and C. Active and task-oriented type D has a personality trait of dominating, demanding, and determined. Active and people-oriented type I has a personality trait of inspiring and interactive. Passive and people-oriented type S personality traits are steady yet shy, submissive, and finally, passive yet task-oriented type people, C, has a personality type of competent, careful, and contemplative. When assessing personality traits, they are normally categorized into a combination of 2: what is expected of me and what I expect of me. With the Uniquely You assessment and Carbonell's explanation of the categories in which we operate, as well as traits, the first assessment breaks down the what is expected of me. I personally tested as a DC personality type. I am a person who desires and is motivated off of challenges and control. However, I need to learn that there are people that are out there that we need. I also need to learn that relaxation is not a crime, and being a workaholic can be bad at times. The second assessment breaks down the this is what I expect of me. I'm also motivated by and desire quality as well as precision and calculated risks. During my teenage years, I slowly became the family member that I was called upon when family business needed to be handled. I was the one who would make calculated decisions for the better good. With each trauma, trial, and tribulation, I was the one who operated off of logic and not emotion. Although a helpful tool to have, it did not always benefit my well-being. My social and personal relationships suffered because of the strong-willed, fix-it mentality that I possess. While understanding we may all have some great qualities and some not so great ones, we have to learn that there are effective ways to build relationships with people, as well as communicate with them. With the 6 communication features previously mentioned, we must understand common communication traps that tend to occur when conversing with one or more people. Moreover, with that, we must begin with what happens internally before we can focus on others. With internal noise, we may have many occurrences that distract us from being able to listen and process one's thoughts and feelings. We may criticize ourselves and at times degrade ourselves. This distracts us. With external noise, we must realize that we can't always help everyone, and we have to realize that there's willpower to assist. Peterson elaborates on the idea that there are people who possess so much internal noise that they are unable to hear anyone else's. Peterson also emphasizes on the 10 common communication traps which many people tend to fall into. With the mixture of internal noise and external deliverances, messages may not always be delivered or interpreted well. Some of the common communication traps are the Perry Mason trap, which are statements disguised as questions. They can come off very rudely. Saying, "I understand," or asking why. These may put people in a defense and may not want to communicate after. The fix-it mentality, which equates to always having to make something better rather than just listening. I chose these 4 of the 10 communication traps to elaborate on because I personally fall into these traps. As I go into communication resources and strategies, I look back on some of the barriers I continuously struggle with. I am at times very close-minded with personal feelings, but I can put my tribulations aside to assist others to reach a common ground. I continuously fall into the communication trap as a fix-it person. I am also able to express my shortcomings yet refuse to allow others to attempt to fix me. Some strategies I will work on are listed continuously in the Peterson text. Showing up and being present, as well as being willing to make the change, and most importantly, listen to understand, not just to respond. These are struggles for me because I am often too goal-oriented to understand the emotion behind someone's thought patterns. I tend to only listen so I can gather enough information to respond. Something I do not struggle with, but I have seen many others struggle with, is being an empathetic listener rather than a sympathetic one. According to France and Weichel, empathy is communicating your understanding and being able to place yourself in the speaker's shoes temporarily. Sympathetic listening shows concern and a type of guarantee they may not always be warranted. According to Ozeki, Panscora, and Gilliam, nonverbal cues when communicating are vital as they set the tone for the conversation, especially in interviews. Nonverbal communication consists of how you stand, how you use eye contact, facial expressions, and these are just some of the vital ones that are helpful when conversing. Using these nonverbal cues may assist with the breakdown some of the communication barriers that many of us fall into. As I use different communication cues and expand my outlook on conversing, I intend to incorporate the talk and listening card that Peterson has created, which gives us hints on how to share and express ourselves and gain clarity. Although it may seem easy to listen and attempt to build relationships, we must keep in mind that defensive communication occurs when we are trying to break out of communication barriers. We need to learn the phrases that takes time and understand that communication is a process. Becker, Elavoid, and Stamp speaks on defensive communication and the fact that defensive verbal interactions warrants a denial of responsibility or places blame. Instead, we must build bonds and learn to take a break from reality. A personal goal I have is to allow the speaker to give me feedback on what conversation that they warrant. Do they need someone who is just a listening ear, or would they prefer someone to actually be the fix-it person? I feel using these methods, I will build strong, lasting relationships rather than temporary, non-personable ones. In conclusion, it is vital we use effective communication while showing empathy and avoiding sympathetic moments and phrases. We must break out of communication barriers, and by doing so, knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, as they play a vital role in the process. Let us remember that communication is a way of life, and as stated in James chapter 1, verse 19, know this, my beloved brothers, let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Thank you for watching my presentation on interpersonal communication. I hope you were able to learn some essential communication skills and pray it may assist you within your future interactions. Have a great day.